Hello everybody and welcome to a comprehensive history of the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. This retrospective journey will chronicle the legacy of the trading card game and explore how it has changed over time. This video will be covering the debut year of the card game, beginning with Patient Zero, The Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon. Released on March 8, 2002, Legend of Blue Eyes would be the first official set release for the TCG. It contained 126 cards, and sealed boxes will now set you back in the thousands. Many early fan favourites from the anime would appear in this set, including Red Eyes Black Dragon, Dark Magician, Exodia the Forbidden One, Blue Eyes White Dragon, and the Flame Swordsman. But those are not all this set had to offer. It also came with numerous powerful support cards, including the field-viping Dark Hole and Raigeki, the defensively minded Swords of Revealing Light and Manita-Bug, the creature-retrieving Monster Reborn, and the ever-so-powerful Pot of Greed. Legend of Blue Eyes was a good start, and its cards have since become iconic. However, it would be generous to say the game was playable at this point. While it was possible for players to gather cards and put together a 40-card deck, there wasn't really much strategy to the game at this point. More cards would be required for this game to satisfy a need for true strategic depth. 3 weeks after the release of Legend of Blue Eyes, we would get our first starter decks, Starter Deck Yugi and Starter Deck Kaiba. These decks would establish the rules of the game and bring structure to the many new players who are taking their first foray into the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! An interesting piece of trivia about these decks is that certain cards were changed outside of North America. Despite these changes, however, the core of the deck stayed the same. Cards such as Lashin, Change of Heart, Summon Skull, and Card Destruction would find their way into almost every deck. With the card pool expanded, players could now begin to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Properly, but there were still some restrictions that needed to be put into place. Unfortunately, some cards were just far too powerful, and something had to be done about them. Thus came the creation of the Limited List. This list would feature some of the most powerful cards in the game, and restrict how many copies of those cards players could use in their decks. Raigeki, Change of Heart, Pot of Greed, Monster Reborn, all 5 pieces of Exodia, and Dark Hole would be limited to 1 copy per deck. Swords of Revealing Light and Card Destruction would be semi-limited to 2 copies per deck. Here is an example of what an early Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck might have looked like in May 2002. As you can see, Summon Skull and Last Shin were powerhouses of this early metagame. Many decks would be built around summoning these monsters and attacking over your opponent's defenses to take out their life points. It was a very basic strategy, but an effective one at that. It is crazy to think now, but cards such as Trap Hole and Stop Defense were really powerful in this meta. Straightforward beatdown decks such as these would come to define the game for most of 2002. And while this metagame was in danger of becoming stale quite quickly, it would not be around for long. Released in North America on June 26, 2002, Metal Raiders would be the largest fresh expansion this game had ever seen, as it introduced 144 new cards. Metal Raiders greatly expanded the game's depth and introduced many cards that would see play for years to come. Debuting in Metal Raiders would be Counter Traps, cards designed to be activated in response to other card effects. Counter Traps were faster than regular trap cards, making them what we now know as spell speed 3. The only thing that can respond to a counter trap is another counter trap. Cards such as 7 Tools of the Bandit would bring an end to the dominance of Trap Hole. Meanwhile, despite being able to negate anything, Solemn Warning saw very little play on release. This is because players considered the cost of half their life points to be far too high. Like Legend of Blue Eyes before it, Metal Raiders came with numerous support cards that players could use to strengthen their decks. Mirror Force was a game changer that stopped your opponent's attacks and destroyed all their monsters. Tribute to the Doomed could destroy any one monster on the field. Heavy Storm would destroy all magic and trap cards on the field. Sangan and Witch of the Black Forest combined could search almost any monster from your deck when sent to the graveyard. Finally, Magician of Faith could retrieve any magic card from your graveyard and add it back to your hand. Here is how the limited list changed following the release of Metal Raiders. Mirror Force went to 1, while Sangan, Witch of the Black Forest, and Heavy Storm would go to 2. Here is an updated version of the earlier beatdown deck list. Witch of the Black Forest, Sangan, Heavy Storm, and Mirror Force have all gone into the deck. Thanks to the enlarged card pool, there is now no one correct way to play a deck. Dark Elf, while powerful, could easily be replaced with 7 coloured fish, which was also released in Metal Raiders. Tribute to the Doomed allowed players to destroy their opponent's monsters without flipping them face up, making it the perfect out to Magician of Faith. Counter trap cards such as 7 Tools of the Bandit and Magic Jammer, while useful, were not necessary. Deck building at this time was still fairly linear, but there was some variation in how you chose to play. Yu-Gi-Oh! Quickly found popularity among children and collectors, but they were not the only people Konami wanted to cater to. There was a real desire for the TCG to grow as a competitive game, and so came the creation of Tournament Pack, a series of boosters that were handed out to players who competed at officially sanctioned events. Metal Raiders did much to display the game's potential, and it was time for the TCG to take the next step. Releasing on September 16th, 2002, Magic Ruler would be the most powerful set to date. The impact of Magic Ruler can still be felt today, as many of its cards would go down in infamy for their strength. Magic Ruler would also introduce 2 new monster subtypes to the game, Rituals and Toons. Ritual monsters were creatures who could only be summoned through the effects of certain spell cards. Toons were special effect monsters who were designed to be played in combination with the Magic card Toon World. To give you an idea of just how powerful Magic Ruler was, here are an assortment of cards that are banned from modern play. Giant Trunade was banned in 2011 for enabling card loops. Snatch Steal has been banned and unbanned numerous times thanks to its ability to steal games off the opponent. Delinquent Duo was banned because paying 1000 life points to discard 2 cards from your opponent's hand was just too unfair. The Forceful Sentry would be banned for similar reasons, as it allowed you to look at your opponent's hand and shuffle 1 card back into their deck. Painful Choice would be banned because pitching 5 cards from your deck is one of the most powerful plays in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cyberjar would eventually be banned because of strategies that allowed you to deck your opponent out. And finally, Confiscation would be banned for many of the same reasons as the Forceful Sentry and Delinquent Duo. Overpowered cards aside, Magic Ruler still had plenty to offer in its card pool. Axe of Despair could equip to any monster and increase their attack by 1000 points, making it by far the strongest equip card. Mystical Space Typhoon could destroy any one magic or trap card on the field, and could even be activated on your opponent's turn because it was a quick play card. Maha Phyla would have the ability where it would gain 500 attack points for each card equipped to it, making it the perfect combo piece to go with Axe of Despair. Mystic Tomato would be among the first recruiters, monsters who could summon other monsters from deck when they were destroyed. Upstart Goblin allowed you to draw 1 card from your deck at the cost of giving your opponent 1000 life points. The negligible cost of this card would lead to the creation of what would be known as the 37 card deck, as some players opted to run 3 of them. Giant Germ was another recruiter monster who could summon more copies of itself from the deck when destroyed. Additionally, it would inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent on destruction. Time to update the limited list, and I have to say, Magic Ruler wasn't messing around. 7 cards straight to limited. Painful Choice, Cyberjar, Snatch Steal, Upstart Goblin, the Forceful Sentry, Confiscation, and Delinquent Duo. The updated version of the beatdown deck is pretty self-explanatory. Every overpowered card from Magic Ruler has gone straight into the deck. On top of that, Mechanical Chaser has replaced Lashin, though realistically, most players did not have Mechanical Chaser. It was a very rare card. This list is very focused on aggression, but much like with Metal Raiders, there are different ways you can go about building your deck. Additional copies of Mystic Tomato would not have been a bad idea. Same goes for Giant Germ. Both cards would serve the purpose of thinning out your deck and setting up a Summon Skull tribute. It must also be noted that relinquished decks were very popular at this time, thanks to it being the most powerful ritual monster due to its effect, and also being the one with the lowest cost. As a level 1 monster, you could summon it by tributing anything. Also included from Magic Ruler is Sonic Bird and Senju of the Thousand Hands, who search ritual magic and monster cards respectively. It is time to move on, but first we must talk about the release of Morphing Jar in Tournament Pack 2. Much like Cyber Jar, this card was a powerful tool for engineering comeback plays. Today, the Tournament Pack 2 printing of Morphing Jar is among one of the rarest cards in the game. And with that, we have reached the last pack release of 2002, and boy did it go out with a bang! Releasing on October 20th, Pharaoh's Servant would be one of the more intriguing releases that year. It was the first pack to feature cards from the Battle City arc in the anime, such as Gearfried the Iron Knight, Buster Blader, Jinzo, and Parasite Parasite. Pharaoh's Servant would have less of a focus on power creep cards, and instead would encourage players to try creative deck building. At 105 cards, it would be the smallest set of 2002, but it would also be the most varied. The power cards in this set would be weaker than those seen in Magic Ruler, but they would still leave their mark on the game. Nobleman of Crossout was the ultimate answer to flip effect monsters. Premature Burial was designed to be a watered down alternative to Monster Reborn, but over time it would become arguably the more powerful card. Imperial Order was one of the game's first truly powerful floodgate cards, and it could seemingly win games on its own. Limiter Removal would come to define machine decks for years to come, as its attack doubling effect could be stacked multiple times in one turn. While weak on release, Coldwave would soon come to be known as one of the most unfair cards ever printed. Thousand Eyes Restrict would go on to become one of the most famous monsters in the game, as it would come to define an entire era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Call of the Haunted would be the first card that allowed you to revive monsters on your opponent's turn, and Ceasefire, like Nobleman of Crossout before it, would make a mockery of flip effects. For tech options, Pharaoh's Servant would give us a lot to play with. Time Seal would be the first card to teach us why skipping the draw phase is bad design. Chain Destruction would punish players who used multiple of the same monster in their deck, and would greatly hinder recruiter strategies. Backup Soldier was a nice boon for Exodia decks, and not much else. Goblin Attack Force would be the strongest level 4 monster, and would still see play despite its drawback. Morphing Jar number 2 was far more balanced than its predecessors, but it was also far more annoying. The Fiend Megacide would be the first high level monster that could special summon itself on your hand when you were at a card disadvantage, making it a precursor to Cyber Dragon. Dust Tornado was a nice budget alternative to Mystical Space Typhoon. Last of all, Gravity Bind was an annoying floodgate that prevented all level 4 and higher monsters from attacking. The limited list for December would add numerous cards from Pharaoh's Servant, most notably Jinzo, whose effect would negate all trap cards on the field. Swords of Revealing Light and Witch of the Black Forest would also be moving from 2 to 1. Instead of a deck list to top off this video, I called on a friend of mine to duel me in the December 2002 format. Just keep in mind, we're not expert players, there are many misplays, but we thought it'd be a cool demonstration for all of you, so enjoy.
Yo, you wanna learn how to do a f***ing infinite? I'ma teach you, motherfucking bitch ass. Let's start this motherfucker off right! Ow! 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 Drop that shit! Redo it, motherfucker! Ow! Ow! How's it taste? Ah!
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. This Yu-Gi-Oh! History project is something I've been working on for pretty much the entirety of 2020. The original plan was to put it out as one big video covering about 4 years of the game in one go, but I decided that is way too much effort, it would be way too long, so I broke it up into parts, which I think has worked out better. I already have most of the resources ready for the next videos to be made, so the turnaround time shouldn't be too long for them. I'm always welcome to feedback. I'm rather aware that this video has a lot of things that could be improved, but if there's any easy short-term improvements that I could make, I'm more than welcome to hear them. With all that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.